Before we talk about the state of the industry, let me take a moment just to talk about the state of NMPA. We may be 99 years old, but we're actually only finishing just now our second year as a completely independent, member-supported trade association. In our first year, we were able to achieve settlements with Maker Studio, Fullscreen Studio, SoundCloud, and Rap Genius. And the result was, for that first year, when we asked publishers to pay dues to their trade association, the average publisher received back 123% of what they paid in dues. Now, we're a few weeks away from closing out the second year. We've had settlements with Spotify, Musical.ly, Flipagram, and just yesterday, a new $2 million in damages settlement with Awesomeness TV, which means that the average publisher, by the end of this fiscal year, June 30, will see a return on their dues of 130%. Now, my team hates when I talk about these statistics because they think it's just pressure to keep repeating this miraculous performance of always giving back more than what you get. And they're right. You should support your trade association for all the things we do, the lobbying, the public relations. But the litigation and business affairs, it's not bad. In our 12 years, we have spent $36 million on that litigation program. We have never lost a case, and we have returned back to the industry $545 million. And so, in 3 days, when your dues are due for the third fiscal year, we have a long lineup of model deals, settlements, things that you're not going to want to miss out on, so be sure you don't miss that deadline and you stay a member in good standing. Now, one of the things that we do with this dues program is we collect information about the industry, and I can announce today that in 2015, the songwriting and music publishing industry in the United States was worth more than $2.5 billion. Now, when adjusted for control factors, that means that from 2014 to 2015, there was growth, and that's a great story for the industry. But we know that that growth isn't what it should be. When we look at where the revenue comes from, the things that we've been telling you for the last several years are coming true. Performance now represents 57% of the revenue to the industry. Mechanicals has shrunk down to now only represent 18% of revenue, and remember that a good part of interactive streaming is still counted as mechanical. When I started, mechanicals were more than 65% of the revenue stream for the industry. Synchronizations have now grown to 20%, and the ever-increasing important lyric income is now up to 6% of revenue. And so when we talk about our future and we look at where that income is coming from, it will be no surprise for you to hear again that our number one challenge is getting fair value for the songs. If the songs received the value that they have to the companies that use them, those numbers would explode. Start with performance. Our largest income source by far, it's growing. But we are challenged by consent decrees that govern the majority of the industry since 1941, World War II. Now, we have been in a process for almost 2 years at the Department of Justice to try to change the rules that govern ASCAP and BMI. And I will tell you that ASCAP and BMI deserve your thanks and your praise for taking this fight on. No matter what happens at the department, it was the right thing to do, and it has to change. Just take one example of Pandora. I've talked a lot about Pandora over the years, and Pandora went through the exercise of litigating the rates that they paid ASCAP and BMI. We all know the result. 1.85% to ASCAP, 2.5% to BMI. And then something interesting happened. Their business needs changed. And all of a sudden, they had to care about the relationship. And so what happened? Overnight, they voluntarily more than doubled what they were paying to our industry because they were concerned about the relationship. What does that tell you? It tells you that the rate-setting process that we have does not come close to recognizing the value of the songs to their business model. because they were able to more than double it just because they cared all of a sudden. And they deserve praise for that. They deserve credit for doing that. It's not where it should be, but it's better. Now, many of you have seen the movie Shawshank Redemption. You know that Andy Dufresne was imprisoned wrongly, and he had to crawl through, shall we call it, unpleasantness to get to freedom. We right now are in that pipe of unpleasantness. That's what the DOJ process is. But make no mistake, we're doing it for a reason. We will become free, and when we do, the value of your songs will be what they're worth, which is much, much more. Mechanicals, only 18%, but yet we care very much about the future of interactive streaming. Now, we've been talking for years about the concept of one music. It's the same thing that Irving was talking about, the same thing that John was talking about, the same thing the congressman was talking about. The concept that the old model of the tension between labels and publishers is really dead. The future is about third parties who pay for both copyrights. And we propose the concept of one music, that when a third party is paying for music, that record labels and artists and publishers and songwriters ought to be working together to expand the pie, not turning on each other to try to fight over grabbing a bigger piece of a smaller pie. And I am very proud that the music publishing industry has done it. We support, without reservation or condition, a Performance Right Act for artists and record labels. We support, without reservation or condition, them being paid for pre-72 copyrights. We support, without condition or reservation, their rate standard for satellite radio being a willing seller and willing buyer. We've done our part to be partners in the one music philosophy. But now we're in the middle of a Copyright Royalty Board proceeding, where rates will be set for all of Section 115. And Section 115 really is two different rate proceedings put together. There are the Subpart A rates, which are the ones paid to us by record labels. And then there are the Subpart B and C rates paid to us by digital music companies. We're going to start discovery in that trial in about 2 weeks. And unless it is completely settled, we will be going to trial next year to set the rates for a 5-year period beginning in 2018. I first want to thank the independent record labels because they made the decision not to participate in the CRB, and they did it because I was told by Richard Burgess himself they care more about working with publishers and being partners than fighting against them in a rate proceeding. And so, Richard, I thank you and the independent label community for that. I also am thrilled to make a major announcement today, and that is about 5 hours ago, we have settled the CRB with 2 of the 3 major record labels, Universal and Warner. I want to thank Lucian Grange and Jeff Harleston at Universal. I want to thank Steve Cooper and Paul Robinson at Warner because they recognize what the independent labels recognize, which we have recognized long ago, that we shouldn't be fighting over dividing a pie. We should be working together on common interests, and so I thank them for recognizing that. Now, on the digital side, it's going to be tougher because, quite honestly, the rates that we're getting right now for interactive streaming do not compensate fairly songwriters and music publishers. And so we will be going through this process. We will be working to try to achieve rates that are fair. Irving talked about this, and he's exactly right. It's not about the revenue that you made this year. It's also about the value that's being created. Spotify is a company that didn't exist, and then all of a sudden, it's worth now $8 billion because what do? Nothing but deliver our songs to consumers. And God bless them for it. But the idea that we would only get about 10% of their revenue for that, no equity in the company, while others are dividing up the other 90% when the business model is based on our songs, is outrageous. And that's why this Copyright Royalty Board proceeding is so important to get rates for the future that will be fair. Synchronization. Now, this is the one area, as you know, that we're not regulated by a World War I law or a World War II consent decree. This is the one area where record labels and publishers are both in a free market. It is the one area where the market has set rates, and we know what's happened when the market sets rates in that area. But are we truly free? As Irving was talking about with the DMCA, it is not a free market. What we're dealing with YouTube is not a fair negotiation. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act was not meant to support companies whose business model is to upload content. It was meant to protect the dumb pipes. It also is completely unreasonable for the process to work like it does, where when you want something taken down, you have to go through a whack-a-mole process where you can never really take it down, but instead, we should be looking at something where it is a takedown and a stay down. Now, I don't think that Congress is going to change the law. At least it's going to be a hell of a fight. But I do think that Irving is right, that if the artist community, the songwriter community, the entire industry speaks up on this issue, there can be change, just like we saw with Pandora. And so this is the one issue where we're all unified. So maybe we start focusing here on fairness in models like YouTube for the compensation to songwriters and artists. Now, last year we started a new charitable foundation, the NMPA Songs Foundation. Stands for Supporting Our Next Generation of Songwriters. I am so pleased that amazing songwriters, Steven Tyler, Jewel, Lee Miller, who's here, and Cara Diaguardi have agreed to join the board of this foundation. We kicked it off last year with a golf tournament that was an incredible success, joined by amazing songwriters like Lady Antebellum, Hootie and the Blowfish, Creed, others. And we'll have our next golf tournament on September 13th for this great foundation. I am very pleased to announce that the first grants from this foundation will go in a partnership with the National Endowment of the Arts to a songwriting competition being run by the NEA, and next month we expect to award the first grants from that program. So I thank Jane Chu of the NEA, who was our keynote speaker last year. I think that's what caused her to think of this partnership, and we're incredibly grateful for it. Now, all that NMPA does, of course, is a team effort. And I first want to recognize and thank the incredible people who serve on my board of directors, 18 music publishers. If you'd please stand and let the group recognize you for what you do for the industry. And there have also been a lot of really nice things said about me, and I'm humbled by them, but of course, I'm only as good as my team. And I have an amazing team. NMPA is 10 people. 10 people. And if my staff could please stand, and you could please recognize the great work that they do.